My wife told me she wanted a divorce because I worked too much. 2 weeks later, I found a joint checking account in her name, and her ex-boyfriend's opened 8 months before she ever said the word divorce. If you like stories where the quiet guy turns out to be 3 steps ahead the whole time, stick around and hit subscribe, because this one has a lot of turns. I'm Ray, 37. My wife, Nicole, 35. Married 5 years, together 7. No kids, which by the end of this you'll understand was probably the only mercy in the whole situation. I run a small commercial HVAC business, which means yes, I work a lot, 60-hour weeks most of the year, longer during summer when every restaurant and office building in the city suddenly discovers their AC unit hates them. Nicole knew what she signed up for. She used to brag about it to her friends. Actually, my husband's building something. He doesn't just clock in and out. That was 3 years ago. People change their tune fast when it stops being useful to them. About 4 months ago, Nicole sat me down on a Sunday night and told me she wasn't happy. Said the marriage felt one-sided. Said she felt like a placeholder in my life while I built my company. Said she needed a partner, not a business owner who came home smelling like a compressor at 9 p.m. I sat there and actually listened, actually felt guilty. Because when someone tells you they're lonely, you don't usually assume they're lying about the reason. I asked her what she wanted to do about it. She said she wanted a divorce. Just like that. Calm. Like she was telling me she wanted to repaint the guest room. Said she'd thought about it for a long time and she didn't see the business slowing down anytime soon, so she didn't see the point in waiting for something that wasn't coming. I asked for time. Told her I could cut back, hire a second crew lead, actually be present. She said she appreciated it, but she'd already made up her mind. I remember thinking that was strange, the speed of it, the certainty. People who are actually agonizing over ending a marriage usually don't sound like they're reading from a script they rehearsed in the car. I didn't fight her on it that night. Told her I needed a few days to process, which was true, but it also bought me time to do something I probably should have done the second she said the word divorce with that much confidence. Looking back, there were smaller things I'd waved off for months. She'd started taking her phone into the bathroom when she showered, which sounds paranoid to even mention, except it was new, and she'd never done it before that year. She'd also started going to a book club on Wednesday nights that, as far as I could tell, never actually discussed a single book when I asked her about it. Just vague answers like, "It was good. We talked about life stuff." I'd chalked all of it up to normal marriage texture, the kind of small distance that creeps in when two people get comfortable. In hindsight, comfortable wasn't the word. Distracted was. I called my buddy Wes, who does bookkeeping and forensic accounting work for small businesses, and asked him, off the record, if there was a clean way to check whether any new accounts had opened under our joint Social Security information or credit profile in the last year. Not because I suspected anything specific yet, just because something about how fast she'd landed on divorce made my stomach uneasy in a way I couldn't explain. Wes called me back 2 days later and said, "Ray, I want you to sit down for this." There was a joint checking account, opened 8 months earlier, at a bank we'd never used, under Nicole's name and a man named Corey Denning. I didn't recognize the name at first. Then I remembered. Corey was Nicole's college boyfriend, the one she dated for almost 3 years before we met, the one she always described as immature whenever his name came up, the one whose Instagram she swore she hadn't looked at in years. 8 months of statements, not huge amounts moving through it. Nothing that screamed criminal, just steady deposits from both of them. A few hundred here, a few hundred there, building up to just under $11,000 sitting in an account my wife had never once mentioned in 7 years together. I sat in my truck in a Home Depot parking lot for probably 20 minutes, just staring at the screenshots Wes sent over. Then I did something I'm not particularly proud of, but I don't regret either. I didn't confront her. I called Renata Cole, a divorce attorney a client of mine had used a few years back, and I made an appointment for the next morning. Renata's first question when I sat down was simple. "Do you want to save this marriage or end it?" I told her I genuinely didn't know yet, but I knew I wasn't going to walk into a divorce Nicole had apparently been quietly preparing for months while I was the one blindsided by the word. Renata nodded like she'd heard some version of this 100 times. Then step one is you stop being blindsided. Get me everything Wes found. Don't confront her yet. Let her keep thinking she's the one steering this. For the next 10 days, I lived like a man with two separate lives running in parallel. At home, I was distracted husband number one, agreeing to a trial separation conversation, letting Nicole believe she had the upper hand, asking softball questions about what she wanted moving forward. Away from home, I was gathering bank statements, texting Wes for updates, and sitting in Renata's office twice, reviewing a growing folder of financial paperwork that told a very different story than the one my wife had been telling me at the dinner table. Turns out, once you start pulling one thread, more come loose. Wes found that Nicole had also increased her 401k contribution withdrawal requests over the past 6 months. Small hardship withdrawals here and there that never once showed up as extra money in our shared expenses. Where it went was obvious once you cross-reference dates against deposits into the account with Corey's name on it. I finally asked her straight, on a Thursday night, no lead up, no softening it. Who's Corey Denning to you these days? She went white for about half a second before recovering. Why are you asking about him? Because his name is on a bank account with almost 11 grand in it, and yours is too. Long pause. The kind of pause where you can watch someone deciding in real time whether lying is still an option. It's not what it looks like. It's a joint account. There's not a lot of ways to make that look like something else. We reconnected a while back. It's complicated. It's not romantic. We're just helping each other save for some things. It's practical. That's all it is. Practical joint savings with your ex-boyfriend. While you're married to me. While telling me you want a divorce because I work too much. She started crying. The fast kind that comes on right when someone's cornered rather than the slow kind that builds. You're going to twist this into something ugly. I don't need to twist anything. You opened an account with a man you dated for 3 years, hid it from me for 8 months, and then told me our marriage was ending because of my work schedule. I'm just repeating facts back to you. She didn't have an answer for that. She left the room, went upstairs, and I heard her on the phone with someone for almost an hour. I didn't need to guess who. The next morning, I told her I'd made a decision too, and it wasn't a trial separation. Renata filed that same week. I had Nicole served at her office on a Tuesday, mostly because Renata said workplace service tends to prevent the "we can still work this out privately" conversations that happen when you serve someone at home in front of no witnesses. Nicole called me screaming within the hour. You had me served at work? In front of my whole team? You wanted a divorce. I'm giving you one. Figured you'd want it to feel official. This is humiliating. So was finding out about Corey through a forensic accountant instead of from you. She switched gears fast, the way people do once yelling stops working. It's not what you think, Ray. Corey and I are just friends who happen to be smart with money. You're making this into something it's not. Then you won't mind explaining that under oath. Silence on the line. That silence told me everything the account statements hadn't already. Update 1, about 2 weeks later, and this thing has gone from quiet betrayal to full circus faster than I expected. First came the family calls. Nicole's mother phoned me in tears, said Nicole told her I was punishing her for wanting emotional connection, and that filing for divorce this fast was cruel and impulsive. I read her the account opening date, 8 months prior to the word divorce ever coming out of her daughter's mouth. There was a long silence on that call too, and then a much quieter, I didn't know about an account. Nicole's sister, Dana, took a different approach, showing up at my shop unannounced during a Tuesday lunch rush. Found me in the office going over invoices. You're really doing this over some old friend she reconnected with? Some old friend she opened a joint bank account with. While married, while telling me the marriage was ending because I worked too much, not because she was quietly rebuilding a relationship with her college boyfriend. Dana didn't have a great comeback for that, just some line about how I'd always been distant, and maybe Nicole just needed something Corey could give her that I couldn't. I told her I appreciated her honesty about what her sister apparently valued more than a marriage, and that she was welcome to leave whenever she was done defending it. Meanwhile, Corey himself reached out. Unknown number, a text that read, "Hey man, didn't want it to go down like this. Nicole and I aren't doing anything wrong. We're just close," I replied with one line. "Then you won't mind if my attorney subpoenas the account records." He never texted again. Nicole's coworkers apparently got their own version of events too, according to a mutual friend who still worked with her at the time. The story going around the office was that I'd become controlling and distant over the past year. That filing for divorce this fast was retaliation for her simply wanting more attention, and that the bank account was old news she'd already explained to me privately months earlier. None of that lined up with the timeline sitting in Renata's folder, but I wasn't particularly interested in correcting an office rumor mill. I figured the truth would surface eventually on its own, and it did, just not on a schedule Nicole controlled. The financial digging kept turning up more. Renata's team found that Nicole had also quietly removed herself as a beneficiary on a small life insurance policy we'd taken out together years earlier and replaced it with, you guessed it, an account that eventually routed contact information back to Corey's address. She'd apparently been building an exit for close to a year, all while telling me at dinner that she just needed more of my time. Around this point, Nicole tried a full-court reconciliation pitch. Showed up at the house, unannounced on a Sunday, said she wanted 5 minutes. I gave her 5, mostly because Renata told me it never hurts to let the other side talk on the record, and our state allows one-party consent recording, so I let my phone run in my pocket the whole time. "I know the account looks bad," she said, "but it's not what you think. We were just planning ahead in case things between us didn't work out. That's it." "So you were financially preparing for a divorce that hadn't happened yet, with your ex, while telling me the marriage could still be saved. You're making it sound calculated." It was calculated. There's bank statements. That's a pretty literal definition of calculated. She tried the emotional angle next, said she still loved me, said Corey was just someone who listened when I wasn't around, said none of this had to end the way it was ending. I told her that if she genuinely believed talking to Corey twice a week and building a shared savings account with him counted as just listening, then she and I had very different definitions of a marriage, and only one of us had apparently been living inside the real one. She left angry that time instead of crying, which honestly felt like progress for her, if not for us. Update 2, 5 weeks in, and the depositions happened, and this is where things got genuinely ugly for her case. Her attorney tried to frame the divorce as me being a workaholic who'd emotionally abandoned her, forcing her to seek support elsewhere, casting the account with Corey as some kind of understandable coping mechanism rather than what it actually was. Renata calmly laid out the timeline. Account opened 8 months before Nicole ever said the word divorce. Beneficiary changes on the insurance policy 4 months before. Text messages between Nicole and Dana, obtained through discovery after Nicole's own phone backup synced to a shared family cloud account nobody remembered still existed, showing Nicole telling her sister as far back as 10 months ago that she was just waiting for the right moment to bring up separating. The deposition itself did more damage to her case than anything Renata could have argued in a courtroom. Did you open a joint checking account with a former romantic partner while married to the petitioner? Yes, but it wasn't romantic. Did you discuss the possibility of divorce with anyone prior to raising it with your husband? Long pause. I may have mentioned it to my sister. 10 months prior, specifically, according to the text records provided in discovery? That sounds about right. And you told your husband the divorce was motivated by his work schedule, is that correct? That was part of it. Was Corey Denning part of it? Another pause, this one longer, the kind where you can watch someone's legal strategy fall apart in real time. We reconnected. It became something I valued. I didn't act on it the way you're implying. Did you tell your husband about this relationship at any point before he discovered the account independently? No. That single word did more work in that room than 3 hours of testimony. Even her own attorney's expression shifted, the particular look of a lawyer realizing his client left out several important chapters before hiring him. The financial side unraveled just as fast once the full picture was on record. Because I could show a documented pattern of asset movement predating any formal separation, and because Nicole had never disclosed the joint account voluntarily, Renata successfully argued that the $11,000, plus the withdrawn 401k funds, should be treated as dissipated marital assets and factored heavily against her in the final split. Her attorney tried to argue the money was hers to manage since it came from her own withdrawals, but that argument gets a lot weaker once you can prove some of it landed in an account jointly held with someone who wasn't her husband. Renata also caught something small in the discovery documents that ended up mattering more than either of us expected. A handwritten note, photographed as part of Nicole's own phone backup, listing out monthly expenses split 50/50ths with C, going back almost a year, including things like a storage unit neither of us had ever discussed and a recurring gym membership at a location nowhere near our house but conveniently close to Corey's apartment. It was such a small, mundane piece of paper, the kind of thing you'd never think to hide carefully, and it ended up painting a clearer picture of daily life than any of the more dramatic messages had. This wasn't an emotional lapse or a moment of weakness. It was a second household being quietly built and budgeted for in plain sight. I also learned during this stretch that Corey wasn't exactly the reformed, stable guy Nicole had apparently sold herself on either. Turns out he had 2 prior small claims judgments against him for unpaid debts, and one of Nicole's own text messages mentioned covering his half of a car repair out of the joint account more than once. So on top of everything else, my soon-to-be ex-wife had apparently been quietly subsidizing her ex-boyfriend's life while telling me our marriage was suffering from a lack of resources and attention. Final update, about 11 weeks after that Sunday night conversation where she first said the word divorce, and it's finished. We settled before trial, mostly because once the deposition transcript existed on paper, her attorney clearly advised her that a judge hearing all of this read aloud in open court wasn't a risk worth taking, especially with the dissipation argument sitting right there waiting to be used. Final terms. House stays with me, since it was purchased 2 years before we married, and I could document every mortgage payment from a business account solely in my name. Retirement accounts split only on the marital contribution portion, which worked heavily in my favor once her earlier 401k withdrawals got factored against her share. The $11,000 in the joint account with Corey got clawed back into the marital estate and counted almost entirely against her settlement, meaning she effectively lost most of it twice, once when she moved it and again when it got recalculated against her. No spousal support either direction, which her attorney barely fought given everything already on record. She covers her own legal fees. I cover mine. Total cost to me landed around $7,000, which felt like a genuine bargain considering what I avoided by catching this early, instead of years down the road. Dana, of all people, reached out again about a month after everything finalized, this time with a very different tone than her lunch rush visit. Said she'd had a long talk with Nicole after the deposition transcript made its way around the family, and that she was sorry for defending something she didn't have the full picture on at the time. I told her I appreciated that more than she probably realized, and that I hoped Nicole eventually got honest with herself the same way, even if it happened well after it stopped mattering to me. Corey, as far as I know, is no longer in the picture either. Word traveled through mutual contacts that once the financial mess became public within their circle, along with the small claims history getting mentioned more than once, the whole thing lost whatever appeal it apparently had. Funny how quickly people evaporate once the story stops being private. Nicole reached out one final time about 3 weeks after the divorce finalized. Long message. Said she wished she'd just been honest from the start, instead of building an exit slowly and blaming my work schedule for something that had far more to do with an old relationship she never fully closed the door on. Said she hoped I could eventually understand it wasn't really about the business at all. I read it once and didn't respond. Some understanding doesn't require a reply. It just requires moving forward without carrying it. As for me, I kept the house, kept the business, and honestly threw myself into work for a while. Not because I'm trying to prove her right about the hours, but because it turns out building something with your own 2 hands is a pretty good way to process getting blindsided by someone you trusted completely. I've since actually cut my hours back some, hired that second crew lead I mentioned wanting to hire months ago, not for a marriage that needed saving anymore, just because it turns out I like having my evenings back regardless of who's home to share them with. My brother asked me a few weeks ago if I regretted not confronting her the night she first said the word divorce, whether digging quietly before saying anything felt manipulative in hindsight. I told him no, because by the time she said that word, she'd already been building her exit for the better part of a year. I wasn't the one keeping secrets in that marriage. I was just the last one to find out about them. Getting my footing before reacting wasn't manipulation. It was just refusing to walk into a conversation she'd been rehearsing for months completely unprepared. If there's a lesson in any of this, it's that when someone gives you a reason for wanting out that sounds just vague enough to be unfalsifiable, you work too much. I feel disconnected. I need more. It's worth asking a few more questions before accepting it at face value, especially if the timeline of their sudden clarity doesn't line up with anything that actually changed on your end. People don't usually wake up one random Sunday and decide a marriage is over. They usually decide slowly, quietly, somewhere else entirely, and only bring it to you once they've already built the next chapter far enough along to feel safe walking into it. I don't think about Nicole much these days, which honestly surprised me given how long we were together. Mostly what I think about now is how close I came to accepting her version of events without ever checking. How easy it would have been to spend the next year blaming my own work ethic for the end of a marriage that had actually ended somewhere in a bank lobby 8 months before I knew anything was wrong. Quiet nights hit different now. No wondering why she's on her phone in the other room. No explaining away withdrawals I never noticed because I trusted the person making them. Just my own schedule, my own accounts, and a level of certainty about my life that I genuinely hadn't felt in longer than I want to admit. A guy on my crew, Danny, went through something similar a couple years back and stopped by the shop last month just to check in once word got around about my situation. He told me the hardest part for him wasn't the money or even the ex. It was relearning how to trust his own read on a situation after finding out he'd missed something that obvious for that long. I told him I felt the same thing settling in some mornings, that low hum of second-guessing every quiet moment that used to feel normal. He said it fades eventually, that it just takes longer than you want it to, and that the version of yourself on the other side of it is usually a lot more careful and a lot less naive about which quiet moments actually deserve the benefit of the doubt, which honestly isn't the worst trait in the world when you really think it through. If you made it this far, thanks for sticking with the whole story, and I mean that, because I know how long some of these details got. If you want more of these, go ahead and subscribe so the next one lands in your feed automatically the moment it drops. Drop a comment if you've ever caught something buried in the paperwork before it ever came out of someone's own mouth, and I'll see you in the next one.